Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Tuesday, everybody. Welcome back inside the Lock Shop. Dusty and Huss back with you once again. Lock Shop brought to you by our great partners over at Coolbet, where they've got a bunch of different things set up right now for round 2 of the NHL playoffs. We're definitely going to get into that. That's what this episode is about. If you're watching on Twitter or YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed. Just search the Lock Shop on all of your podcasting platforms. We'll have a golf/hockey episode tomorrow, and one of the boys from Coolbet will pop by. Huss, we were split yesterday on that game, and I ended up getting the side and you ended up getting the total.
Yeah, that was that was sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I mean, it was the low scoring game, but man, what a disappointment for the New York Rangers. And as I said, and we'll get to this when we pick the Carolina Jersey series, I have been off on, I think I was wrong on just about every game in that series. I think 2 and 5, I think, picking the games. I never got a good read on it. I thought New Jersey was back, then the Rangers come back, and then I really thought that the Rangers' experience and their goaltending was going to be what put them over the top. But I can't even tell you how impressed I am with New Jersey. I mean, this is a team built in a very different way than, a team like New York. And the fact that, they traded to get Timo Meier, who did absolutely nothing in that series other than get borderline murdered by Jacob Trouba last night. What a hit. Oh, my God.
Just destroyed him.
But, man, they were just like their top speed is a whole different level than what the New York Rangers have. And they skated circles around them at times. I mean, they've got those young legs. That's an exciting team. Man, they are fun to watch. So take my pick in that series with a grain of salt because of how off I've been on New Jersey. But man, I've come around to them. They are, for a long time, New Jersey Devils were a team like, oh my God, I'm not watching this game. They were synonymous with boring hockey. And I think they sort of had that rep for a long time. It couldn't be further from the truth right now, led by Jack Hughes. That was a hell of a performance last night in a raucous building there in Newark. And put it this way, I didn't expect we'd be talking about a Carolina Jersey series, but here we are. And the Jersey Devils are not only for real, they're a minus 127 favorite in this series.
Yeah, which is wild. So we're going to get into that. We're going to give you picks for tonight's game, both games. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but we are going to start with our series picks here, Huss. And, I mean, during the NFL season, this was usually a pretty good sign here, but you and I are thinking along the same lines on 3 of these 4, and I guess possibly we could all be in on the same 4 here because I've just got that Devils Carolina series going 7 at plus 205, and you've got the Devils here. So let's break this bad boy down, Huss. I don't know if there'll be a lot of back and forth here, but when I saw your picks come in, 3 of them I was already on, and then that New Jersey Carolina one I was kind of torn on, and I was like, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, but I decided to take that one just a total instead.
Well, yeah, and full disclosure, I mean, I kind of mentioned that before. This is a really tough pick. I was stunned that the line is what it is, with Jersey being the minus 127 favorite. If anything, I thought it would be the other side. Now, listen, Carolina looked really good. I mean, the Islanders battled hard, but they got the job done. There's a lot of playoff experience. I love Rod the Bod. He seems to bring the best out of his team in the playoffs, but. And I would not at all be surprised if Carolina won this series, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe I should ride with you on, on an over and try and get a 6 or 7 gamer. I'll just say this, that Jersey team looks like they've got sort of something special. I mean, the way they won that series, and this is going to be a common theme with a couple of other teams, but the way they won that series and what they battled through, and the fact that they beat a very, very quality playoff team that went to the conference finals last year, the New York Rangers, makes me think that they are really just getting started. They certainly have the juice to get into the series right away. And Carolina, the fact that they've had one of the longest layoffs, I'm not sure that might not be a good thing for the home team right now.
Yeah,
this is a really, really tough pick. But I'll be honest, I've just been so impressed with what New Jersey was able to do and the level that they played and how they rose to the occasion, shutting out the Rangers in Game 7 Not to mention they've got a young goalie that no one had ever heard of before that is playing lights out and out-dueled Ilya Shesterkin. Both goalies had 930 plus save percentages going into the game 7, and he was perfect last night. I'm going to sprinkle on the Devils in this series on the money line, and sounds like you're thinking that this is going to be a long one.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you make some really good points, and this is why I think this series is going to be such an evenly matched, well-played series. You talked about how well the New Jersey Devils move, and the New York Rangers just could not keep up with them. But I think Carolina can. Like Carolina is extremely aggressive as well. This will be a little bit of a reality check or a shock here, I think, for the Devils to go from playing the Rangers to playing this tenacious Carolina team that's in your face the whole time and skates. Like, this should be a highly entertaining series. And I'm very interested to see where these totals settle in, right? I think game 1's 5.5. And you know, I wonder if it opens up a little bit compared to what we saw from Carolina in that last series. I mean, Schmid was great in that last series. I still question Carolina's goaltending a little bit here. I think we could see some fireworks along the way in this series, but I do think this will be counter punch back and forth. So I'm torn on who to take, New Jersey and Carolina, but I'm looking at this value at plus 205 for this series to go 7 games. And I think I'm going to stick with that just to get that plus 205 number, because I think this series could very well go the distance between two teams that could. I think there could be some games where New Jersey skates Carolina into the ground, and the same the other way. And then the games when they're both going, those are going to be fantastic playoff games to watch. So I think we're going to see a back and forth series here. To be honest with you, I don't even have a lean. Like, let's say if one of these teams finish the other team off in 5, I wouldn't lean either way on either of these teams to get that done. So I'm going to say this bad boy goes the distance, and we'll get some good value here at plus 205.
Yeah, and you know what? Considering the way these odds are going to switch, I mean, I might even take the team that loses game 1 in game 2, or potentially to win the series, I guess, depending on what's going on. This is the hardest pick for me by far, and I think the odds dictate that as well. You know, they're the shortest favorite, if you will. But again, I'm sort of surprised that they are the favorite, considering.
Yeah, me too. I was surprised. Yeah.
But listen, they, like myself, I think they've made a lot of believers. I think they've got a lot of momentum going into this round. Well, let's get to the other series in the East right off the bat. The Leafs and the Florida Panthers. We all thought it was going to be Toronto-Boston. It almost was Toronto-Boston, but it wasn't Toronto-Boston. And the Florida Panthers survive. They've beaten a historically great team. They have done it in a fashion that I think only makes a team more dangerous going forward. And let's face it, like, the Leafs certainly have gotten over the hump, but the fact that they're not playing the Boston Bruins, the fact that they are playing the Florida Panthers, puts all the pressure on Toronto in this series. And listen, they're always a publicly bet team, so I think that there's value on Florida at plus 150.
Exactly.
I think in reality, this probably should be like maybe a plus 130 underdog, as opposed to what the number is right now. But we see this all the time. Teams in the first round, and this sort of goes to what I was just saying with Jersey, who battle through and get it done and move on to that next round, that are sort of playing with house money, if you will, are very, very dangerous. And listen, if you can beat the Boston Bruins in a best of 7, you can beat anybody right now. Bob's feeling it after getting the nod in game number 5. He was great. Listen, Samsonov was good, and the Leafs big players stepped up at big moments. But you can also make the argument that Tampa was the better team in 4 or 5 games of that series, minus a couple wild comebacks late in the game. So I guess I don't want to say that the jury is still out on the Leafs, because full credit to them for getting it done. But when I look at this from a betting situation, and we've also seen, by the way, Paul Maurice is due for a random run to the Cup final. I mean, it's happened a couple times.
He's been around long enough, right? Like, yeah.
He certainly has. And you know, listen, I can't wait for this series, because I mean, I am a fan of Matthews in particular, and Marner and Ryan O'Reilly. And I think the Leafs are really built more like a playoff team than we've seen them in the past. But man, the Florida Panthers, led by Matthew Tkachuk, are a problem, and I was just speaking with Dave Poulin earlier today, and he said Matthew Tkachuk's probably been the best player in the playoffs. And if he continues to do what he can do and they get the goaltending, Brandon Montour is looking like, young Erik Karlsson right now. I mean, he's playing incredible. And honestly, I think the fact that the Leafs are starting at home, and we'll get to this tonight. I mean, I think there is the possibility for a little bit of a letdown, whereas the Florida Panthers coming in on that emotional high of beating the Boston Bruins. I think they're a real dangerous hockey team. And as I say, I love the number at plus 153.
This is too close of series to get on the Leafs at minus 182. To me, it is. The play here is the Florida Panthers at plus 153. You mentioned what we think this number should be. You mentioned Matthew Tkachuk, and what Pooley said is 100% the truth. I mean, Tkachuk has been excellent so far in these playoffs. He's going to be an absolute nightmare for the Toronto Maple Leafs. If the Panthers get any sort of goaltending from Bobrovsky, they will be a very difficult out here. We haven't even mentioned Barkov, who by all accounts wasn't great against Boston, but you can throw Barkov out there against anybody on the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're going to have the advantage in the two-way game as well. You talked about the momentum coming in here, and the one thing, and it wasn't just you and I saying this. I mean, people that you talked to, the boys from Coolbet when we had them on the show, they're like, yeah, the Leafs really haven't been the better team in much of this series. Now they got it done, but is that more so because Tampa just didn't have the juice to get it done anymore? And it could be a positive for the Leafs. They haven't played the best hockey in the playoffs yet. Maybe that happens here against the Florida Panthers, but if it doesn't, they're not just going to walk all over the Florida Panthers. I don't think that's going to work. Florida is a deep team up front. They've got a nice right side on that blue line, right, with three different sort of styles of defensemen. If they get any type of goaltending, this is a series, and I really like your idea of them coming out here. If the Leafs have any sort of letdown in the first couple of games here, Florida Panthers aren't going to let them get away with that. So I at plus 153, there's no option for me. I have to take the Panthers at that number.
Yeah, this is not a hater pick at all. I know there's a lot of people that, have their allegiances, and the Leafs are one of those teams where you either love them, you hate them. I picked them to win the first series. I picked them to beat Tampa, and they beat a hell of a hockey club. One that had been the standard in the East, going to the Cup final for the last 3 seasons and winning 2. There's just something about this Panthers team right now. And you know what? You can often look back at teams that make these crazy runs, and there's 1 or 2 moments that you realize like maybe something special is happening with that team. And to me, it was the Bob save on Marchand in the final dying second of game number 5, which would have ended the series. Then, of course, the gaff by Ullmark afterwards, in OT, and the Florida Panthers never looked back. And I'll say this about Paul Maurice. He has his team dialed in right now and playing with that level of bite that you need to have in the playoffs right now. They really seem to be built for this moment. And it didn't look very good for most of the regular season, but they're coming at it now. We can't forget this was the team, albeit with a few different players, that won the President's Trophy last year. And there's quite a run of teams that fail as President's Trophy winners that then succeed in the next season. So can't wait for this series. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And
wasn't it Washington, Tampa, Colorado? I mean, they all won the President's Trophy, then followed it up with a Stanley Cup the following year, right? So I don't know if Florida's at that level, but I mean, they've suffered this defeat already, right? Like they've been there. So that it'd be interesting. We'll try to have Pat on tomorrow's episode, but both of the boys, Pat just quickly, Pat said, I tweeted out, I said, Huss is making a pretty strong case for the Panthers. And Pat replied and said, of course he is. And then Jake, who I think is watching right now, says, hate you guys, but here's what I'm thinking for an exclusive for the second round. So we'll try to lay that out earlier because we're on three of the same things here, right? So it does make some sense. But yeah, anything to add still on this series? Sorry as I interrupted. I was just laughing at the boys.
Not really. It's going to be awesome. This is another one that could go either way. I do think that the odds don't make sense. That's often the case with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think there's real good value with Florida at plus 153, and bring it on. I think it would have been great for the Leafs if this series, maybe there was an extra day in between, because I really do think the Panthers are coming in hot to this game tonight. And this is going to be a real challenge for the Leafs to, I think, match what Florida's bringing in, considering the emotional nature of a Game 7 overtime win against the best team in hockey. let's get to well, you know what? Let's hit this Dallas series.
Yeah, let's do that one first. Yeah.
The Dallas, and it's funny that we both jumped on the -1.5. I mean, Dallas is a -204. I usually don't bet favorites that are that big. And hey, credit where credit is due to the Seattle Kraken for pulling off an upset that we'd all be talking about if Florida didn't do what they did to Boston as the biggest underdog by point differential in NHL history in our first round. To me, Dallas has one thing that nobody else has. That's Jake Ottinger. Although, you know, we got to give credit to Grubauer. I mean, he hasn't been very good in Seattle. He was great.
Phenomenal in the first round. Yeah.
Great. But I'll tell you what, he's going to need to be just that. I mean, we've talked a lot about Dallas, and we're high on Dallas going maybe out of the Central Division coming into the playoffs. And now I think they've got a real advantageous matchup. They've got way more playoff experience, although you could have seen the exact same thing about Colorado. But you know it's tough to get back. They had injuries. They had the stuff with Nichushkin happen in the middle of the series. There were a lot of things that came back. I just don't think that Seattle's going to be able to catch Dallas by surprise like they did before. And I don't think they run away with these games. That's just not the way the Dallas Stars play. But I'll say this. I'll take Jake Ottinger just about over any goaltender right now. And with what Rupi Hintz is doing, and Tyler Seguin's got some juice back in his game right now. And man, they've got some talented defensemen led by Miro Heiskanen. So I think Dallas is the pick. As I say, -204, not good. But for Dallas to win in 6 or less, we're getting plus money on that. I think there's a very good chance that this one doesn't go the distance and Dallas wins. So let's take plus 105.
Yeah, you got to my guy. I mean, if you listen to this, if you listen to two guys and a goalie, if you listen to the Nielsen show, big time Jake Ottinger guy. I mean, this is the type of franchise goalie that can lead you to a Stanley Cup. And you know, we just saw excellent Grubauer in that last series against the Colorado Avalanche. Can he do that again? Well, he probably has to do that again if he's going to come even close to outdueling Ottinger and Grubauer. I think there's 926 and 925 in the first round. So I mean, the game tonight, the total set at 5.5. We'll probably see a bunch of 5.5s in this series. But I'm with Huss. This isn't a series where Dallas is going to go out and win 5-1 and then beat them 5-2. This is a steady diet of 3-2s, 3-1s. I think that's how this series is probably going to stay out. And, you know, you can sit here and go, well, what about Colorado's fire? Dallas is so much deeper than Colorado is in its current state, right? If you go look at the Dallas Stars, what are they running? They got Wyatt Johnson on the second line. When Pavelski gets back, Sagan will bump back down, and that Rupe Hintz line will be together again. You got Max Domi on the third line, Marchman on the third line. Like, Dallas is just so much deeper than that Colorado team that Seattle just played. I think that's the big difference here. And to find some really good value on it, Dallas at -1.5 games, plus 105 to me was, I mean, it was by far my favorite play in this series. There's other places we could have gone, but I think Dallas -1.5 at plus money is probably the play here.
Yeah. And you know, one other thing I think there's a big advantage in coaching as well. And hey, Hackstall, Dave Lowry, their staff in Seattle, what a job they've done to make the playoffs. No one expected it. And I mean, nobody had them beating Colorado in the first round. But I'll say this, Peter DeBoer has a ton of playoff coaching experience. And I think that's another advantage for Dallas in this series. So let's get Dallas in 6 or less at plus 105, which brings us to Edmonton and Vegas. And hey, as someone that just watched the Jets, you know, have a great start and look like the best team in the league for 4 periods at the beginning of the series, and then really sort of get humbled by Vegas at the end. Make no mistake about it. This is a very good, very deep team that's in a lot of ways built for playoff hockey. I just can't bet against Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid when it comes down to it. I mean, to me, I think this will be a close series. I think it'll be competitive. I think both teams will win games. But when it comes down to it, I mean, and we're talking about games and series where often the difference between winning and losing is real small. 2 big-time players like that can make all the difference right now. And a huge challenge for Jack Eichel and Mark Stone to sort of hang with those big boys. But to me,
how did Stone look in that series against Winnipeg, Huss? Like, the production was there. How did he look?
He looked terrible in game number 1.
Okay.
And then almost put the team on his back in game number 2. and won it, I don't want to say on his own, but he looked more like the old Mark Stone. It sort of took him about 4 or 5 periods to get it. By the third period of game 2, he was dominant. Now, again, he's not a burner or anything like that, but man, when you talk about smarts, a great stick, great forechecker, brilliant player, Mark Stone is that guy. But again, I mean, with all due respect to Mark Stone and everyone playing for Vegas, they don't have Connor McDavid and they don't have Leon Draisaitl right now. And to me, thinking about a close series between two really, really good teams, I'm going to lean on the biggest difference makers, and it's 97 to start it off, and of course 29 as well for Edmonton. But I mean, I think that I wouldn't mind actually an Edmonton and 6 pick, because I think the key for them is to, again, they're starting on the road, right? Vegas has home ice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could probably get a better number at that with the, I'll just look at that right now. What would be Edmonton minus 1.5 is, what is that? Plus 120, I guess, as opposed to the number that we've got. So, I mean,
a better number than Dallas minus 1.5. Yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, they're shorter. They're minus 161 as opposed to Dallas, which is minus 204. So that sort of does make sense. But I'll tell you what, and there's a lot of interesting props for this series as well. If you go through and see everyone listed, I mean, Draisaitl over 4 goals in the series. McDavid over 9.5 points. I'm
going to be on that one. That was one of the ones that I marked down. I'm going to like that one for sure. What's that number at 9.5? Because Draisaitl's at 9, McDavid's at 9.5.
Yeah, minus 125 to the over for McDavid over 9.5 points.
I also think I like Draisaitl. You can get Draisaitl, McDavid head-to-head goals. And I think I'm going to be on Draisaitl on the head-to-head goals one against Connor McDavid. I think it's minus 118. Basically a pick 'em between the two guys. So, but yeah, you could go look at that for all the series, all the player points for the series and everything. That's obviously going to be taken off the board tonight, so you got to do that today.
Yeah, the one thing that paid in round 1 was just betting Draisaitl to score every game. He just kept on going, and as they say, goaltending will be a big part of this. But I mean, listen, I got a lot of respect for both of these teams. I think they're both well built. But to me, that top end talent is the difference maker, and it's pretty hard not to ride with the Oilers.
Well, and the top end talent kind of ties into, I think, what will be the biggest difference maker in this series. The goaltending, pretty much a wash. Brossoit's been better than Skinner so far in the playoffs. The blue line, I'd probably give a slight little tick of an advantage to the Golden Knights. You know, they got Pietrangelo and Theodore Martinez, some guys who have done it, who've won it all in the past. Not Theodore, but the other guys, a couple of those other guys. Up front, obviously, you're going to have an advantage with McDavid, but the special teams, the power play for the Edmonton Oilers, deadly. And I was looking at it today, Huss, and I think the Golden Knights penalty kill against the Jets was like 58% in that series. Like, if your penalty kill is going to suck that much against the Oilers, you're done. I mean, you're not going to win a series unless you can somehow miraculously stay out of the box. So Edmonton here, minus 161 is the safer play. I'm with Huss. You want to sprinkle them at that plus 120 number at minus 1.5. I had people texting in today going, Dusty, Oilers in 4 or 5. I'm like, listen, the Golden Knights didn't have Stone for half the season. They basically had goaltending issues the entire year and still finished at the top of the division. Like, this is a good hockey team. I don't think people realize, like, Chandler Stevenson and some of these other guys that they have there, Huss, they are good hockey players.
Stevenson, you could make an argument that was maybe the most important player for Vegas in that series. He was awesome from game number 1. He's so versatile, can play so many different areas, is out there, and you know, will really make for a challenge. Like, I'll say this, as good as the Kings were overall this season at, you know, nullifying offense and, you know, keeping things down, I think the Vegas Golden Knights are even in a better position, especially the way they look towards the end of that series against Winnipeg. So this should be a good one. But as I mentioned, I mean, if you're forcing me to make a pick, I'm not going against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl the way they're looking right now. But do not underestimate the Vegas Golden Knights. They're a heck of a team. Brossoit was good. He wasn't great though, and I mean, at times he made the saves, but looked a little shaky doing it. And he's moving up a couple weight classes with what he's going to be getting from the big boys on the Edmonton Oilers. So that's another thing to pay attention to as well.
All right, let's get into just tonight. Those are our series picks. Let's get into the games tonight, Huss. And yeah, you're continuing with this Florida discussion here in game 1 against the Leafs.
I think this is the spot for the Panthers. I think that the euphoria of winning the series for the Toronto Maple Leafs and starting, as quickly as it is coming out of Game 7 for the Bruins is not a great recipe for Toronto. Florida knows that they're going to need to get one in TO. No better time to do it, building off everything that they've got from that big three games in a row to come back off the mat as a 17-1 underdog after being down 3-1 in round number 1. So I just think this is a great spot for Florida. I like the number of plus 139. I do think the Leafs are going to, certainly have a pushback in this series, and this will be a long one and be really entertaining. But I'm going to have a tough time going against Florida, considering what they've done, how good they're feeling. Like they've got a mojo right now that is going to be a big challenge for Toronto. And I'm expecting Florida to have a great start to this series tonight in Game 1.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over 6.5. I mean, it's this one, and kind of like that Golden Knights Oilers series as well. I think we're going to see a lot of goals at these two series. So I'm going to get on Florida, Toronto here, over 6.5 tonight at minus 122. Although I do like the Florida money line at plus 139 as well. But let's just stick to the total tonight. And that Tampa Toronto series. And that was with Vasilevsky in there. Now, Vasilevsky didn't look to be the Vasilevsky that we saw win back-to-back Stanley Cups at one point. But I think, what was it, the first 4 games of that series, 2 were 9-goal games, 1 was a 10-goal game, and Florida Panthers aren't locking anybody down here. I mean, they're a team that can certainly score and have the depth to do it. So, Florida, Toronto, over 6.5 tonight at minus 122. And then you're on the Stars money line. I'm going to get on Dallas in regulation here to get that number up to minus 109 tonight. And, we like Dallas in that series. I like them here in this game tonight. Jake Ottinger setting the tone early in this series, and maybe a little bit of a letdown from the Kraken tonight after what they just accomplished here against the Colorado Avalanche.
Well, you know what? I'm not really as much expecting a letdown. I just think that Dallas is better and they're prepared. They've got the experience of DeBoer behind the bench, and I think that they'll be ready. Because listen, I mean, basically, you could say a lot of the same things about the Florida Panthers for the Kraken coming off their win on Sunday, getting right back at it, going into Dallas tonight. But to be honest, that's why I'm on the money line and not in regulation. I could see these games be very low scoring. I mean, if Grubauer steps up big time, I just think that Dallas has those difference makers, especially without McCann right now. And hopefully he'll get back soon. That's a huge player to lose, considering he had 40 goals for a team that, wasn't really known for scoring. Burakovsky was out. So I'm going to go with that. And plus 275 on a parlay if you want to take the Panthers money line and Stars money line at those numbers.
Also, I checked, because I'll probably do this, I'll move some totals around here. Florida, Toronto over 5.5, and Dallas Kraken under 6.5 tonight. If you want to just move those a goal each way, plus 139 on a parlay tonight if you want to hop on that one as well. And Huss, I did say that Jake had texted us about a little round 2 sort of partner parlay here, a little exclusive. Let me know your thoughts on this. Oilers to win. We like that. Stars to win. I think we like that as well, because we had it. And then Panthers plus 1.5 games. It's plus 318 before a boost. So, I mean, do we want to try to even juice that up a little bit more, or do we just want to go with what Jake kind of laid out watching the episode?
I mean, the only way we want to do, if we want to back our picks and take Florida to win the series, that will take that up in a big, big way. But to be honest, at that number, we'll probably get it at least plus 350. I don't mind having the cushion of the Panthers.
Game 7 loss.
Just get it to 7. As I say, I wouldn't be surprised if they win it, but
covers our bases, covers both sides.
I'm fine with that. So Jake will be watching. So check that out in the Cool Bet exclusives. I'm sure they'll get that up pretty soon. We'll see what the number is officially, but they always take care of the Lock Shop crew with a nice little boost on it. So Panthers to get it to 7 or win the series, and Dallas at Edmonton. I like it. I like it a lot, Dusty.
All right. There we go. We are underway with the second round. And you make sure you snag that before the puck drops tonight. So you got to get on it this afternoon. I just texted Jake back. I said, lock it in. We're good to go. And Yeah, that was good. NBA quickly last night because we were on some NBA games last night. Celtics, that's a disappointing loss for the Celtics. And look, I was on the Sixers plus the 9.5, but I was still stunned that they went in without Joel Embiid in game 1 and beat the Celtics in Boston, buddy.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I was watching the hockey game and I was watching the Blue Jays. I was just sort of following this game. And, at one point the Celtics were up about 6 in the third quarter. I'm like, okay, we're looking good. A little push here and we can cover that number. And then saw what happened. I mean, that's a stunning loss. And I kind of thought that the Celtics were going to pick up the spirits of Boston sports fans. They did the exact opposite after, and I mean, there's a lot of, man, can you imagine that? Now, again, we're not feeling too sorry for Boston sports fans considering what the last 20 years has been like. However, having that as the number 1 seed with the top seed remaining after the Bucks had been out, home against a team without its superstar player, it's a terrible, terrible loss. James Harden was cooking last night, though,
45, huge 3 with about 10 seconds left to put them ahead for good. That was big. And then just quickly before we go, I don't know what's going on with the Suns. I know the Nuggets number 1 seed. I get it.
Nugs.
But for the Suns to have KD and Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton and score 87 points in a playoff game, buddy, that's unbelievable. I mean, losing is one thing. Not even hitting 90 points on a team with, and I know they're not deep. They trade away a lot of their depth, but still with that starting unit, man, you got to put up more than 87 bloody points. That was brutal last night.
Yeah, it was. They got to do what the Warriors did. Get off the mat after losing those first 2 on the road and win 4 of 5. We'll see if they can do it. By the way, how you feeling about game 1 tonight? Lakers at Warriors. Lakers plus 166 on the money line. Warriors, great team at home, minus 200, and a 4.5 point spread in the game tonight.
Probably going to stay away from it myself. If I had to take a side, I think I'd probably go Warriors minus the 4.5 points. Knowing series over the last 20 seasons with LeBron James, he does go through a little bit of a feeling out process to kind of figure out, where they can attack in game 2 and what they need to do defensively here. So this would be a huge bonus if the Lakers can come out and win game 1. The Warriors are automatic at home. I like the money line, but it's like minus 200. So I'm going to have to play the spread here if I do get in on this game. And I think I'd probably say, what do you say? It's 4.5?
4.5, yeah.
4.5, yeah. I mean, I'd probably get on the Warriors 4.5. Because, this would be big if the Lakers can steal game 1.
Well, and just by the way, the Heat plus 202 on the money line. Knicks minus 244. This Heat team is cooking right now. I think they've got the best coach in basketball in Spoelstra right now. And Jimmy Buckets is
It'd be tough to bet
Jimmy
against
right
that Heat
now.
team right now, man, for sure.
I mean, listen, it's only it's a 5.5 point spread. But it wouldn't shock me at all if they went and got the win tonight. It's a heck of a number. So that's all up there, as well as the game 2 for Boston, Philly, and game 3 for the Nuggets and Suns, as well as updated series odds, also all there at CoolBet.
We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be talking hockey, obviously, and a big golf episode once again as the big boys come back out to play hustle. We'll talk to you then, man.
You bet. Check that exclusive before they drop the puck tonight.